Hey there, this is Jennifer. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am back with another art journal video tutorial, and I am working with a lot of Dina Wakley Media products this time, and I'm working in my Dina Wakley Media Square journal. I wanted to do a really loose background, so I pulled out, I only have one set of scribble sticks. These are the original collars that came out in the first set. Off camera before starting, I did put a very thick layer of clear gesso on both pages just to prepare the surface in the journal. I am working with the scribble stick and trying to see how I want to go about applying it, and I found that a wet brush rubbing on the scribble stick onto a wet surface is kind of the fastest way, at least for me. So I did spray the page down with a fine mist water bottle, and I am working with 3 collars here. I am starting off with 3 shades in the scribble sticks. I begin with turquoise, move into sky, and then finally into the third collar, night. Using the same technique with a wet brush, rubbing around on the end of the scribble stick onto a wet surface. I'm just going for a loose watercolor sort of look, and I will finish on the left hand side and then do the same technique on the right. And now I'm going to try a fun technique that I really enjoy for adding some unique texture and interest. I am using Deco Art Americana Premium Heavy Gel Gloss, and I'm just applying it through this Dina Wakley Media stencil with a palette knife. And I'm just applying a even coat. And I'm not worried if I leave a few places in the stencil that do not receive the gel. This will just add to the interest and the sort of grungy, distressed look. Now, I'm like Dina, I do not clean my stencils. So you'll see here that the gel, which normally is clear and would dry clear, is picking up some color from the stencil, probably from a distress ink or some other product that has been left behind. I'm not too worried about that. If you're concerned about that, then maybe just clean your stencil with some warm soapy water before applying the gel through the stencil. So I'm just applying the gel onto both sides, not mirroring the design, but changing the stencil direction from one side to the other so that they are different. As I said, this product is clear and would dry clear. It leaves a glossy sheen, and once it is dry, and make sure it is thoroughly dry before moving on, I wanted to add a little bit of color to set in the recesses of the gel. And I started out with the blue, and then when I started to apply it, felt like this was a mistake. Everything is now going to become one tone, one color. I didn't want it to be all one value across. So I'm going in with blackberry, a purple color, and I'm not trying to do one tone all the way across. I'm adding some light areas and some dark areas, and even leaving some areas without the purple color. We'll be going back in the next step with some India ink and sepia, so you don't have to feel like you have to have every section of this colored. Now, I have a tendency to not leave any of the original white space and go full color from side to side. But I do like to go in and add some white space back. I'm using a Dina Wakley Media stencil, and I've taped off the sections that I want to use. And I am doing this very messily, if that's a word, on purpose. I want to get a really rough, distressed, somewhat painterly feel. I don't want everything to be perfect. So I'm really loading the paint and allowing the paint to seep up under the edges of the stencil, which is something we normally don't want to do, but I am encouraging that on this particular piece. So now that we've added some of the white space back, I'm taking a paintbrush, some Bombay India ink and sepia, and I have some water set over to the side, and I'm going to go in between the grooves that we have created with the gel and in the stencil design, and I am going to add the sepia color into those grooves. You can wet your brush to push water around and get different values, areas of darkness and areas of light with the ink. And I'll do this on each one of these stenciled circular patterns. Now, you may not have the India ink, but if you have the original scribble stick set the one that I started with at the beginning of this video, it contains a brown scribble stick that you could very easily use. It would be perfect for this technique. You could just wet your brush, rub it around on the end of the scribble stick, and apply the color in the same method that I'm doing here. So I've gone through with a Posca pen, acrylic paint marker, and started doodling around the edges of, I think she calls them squovels. And I didn't really like this after I did it. I really felt like I had made a mistake. But stick with me. Don't give up yet. It comes together in the end. So once these layers have dried, I've decided to do some splatters. So I have a black scribble stick and a wet paintbrush, and I am just doing some splatters on both pages. And this just adds a little fun, a little extra interest. And you'll see I'll do this later in white as well. I'm going to take this to dry, and then we'll move on. And I am going to edge both pages with some black acrylic paint on a cosmetic sponge. Okay, so I love the collage tissue that Dina has come out with. I use it a ton, and I have way too many sets, multiples of each set, because I was so afraid I would run out that I've sort of stockpiled it. But I'll be honest with you, I've never used the white on white tissue paper before. And I've wanted to use it, and I've thought about it, and I've, Googled and watched some videos of different people using it, and I just couldn't wrap my head around how it would work for me. So I'm a little unhappy with some of the darkness and how bold those squovels are. So I thought this is, I like to experiment in my art journal, and this is a great time just to break out that white on white tissue and see if I can salvage something here. So I have picked the small white circles on the white tissue, and I'm going to overlay it in some areas where it is dark, and also where I can beat back those bold squoval shapes that I'm not super fond of. So I'm going to do that in multiple places across the page, and let's see how it turns out. Okay, so it really looks a lot better in person than it really shows up on camera. The bottom right hand corner on the right page especially looks really good. I'm not totally sold on it, but the page does come together really nicely in the end. I want to go back through with a tiny bit of the black. I know I complained about it being very dark, but now we have a really weird white edge in some spots that just doesn't make sense. If we go back through with the black paint and just do the tiniest bit of edging, it does help the white tissue to kind of blend in and make sense. So we'll let that dry. And now I am going to go in with a well, first I'm making a decision here with some collage tissue and trying to make some composition choices before I move through. But I will be going in with a short bristled brush and some white acrylic paint and doing some white splatters. And I think adding the white splatters across will help incorporate that tissue paper a little more. It'll make it feel like it was already part of the background, and it won't stick out like a sore thumb quite so badly. So I've settled on a focal image, also from the Dina Wakley collage, and I have made my composition choices, and you'll see here they're just laying down, they're not glued. And when I add a large focal item from the collage tissue, like a face or a person, I like to gesso behind it. I want a really crisp, clear image. So with a pencil, I'm just making a guideline on where I'm going to put the white gesso. And I'll follow that guideline and put a coat down. I will let that dry, and then I will add a second coat. This just beats that background back and allows the tissue paper to be crisp and clear and a really strong focal image for our art journal spread. So while I'm going through and applying my collage tissue pieces with matte medium, I thought I would just share with you guys a little bit. I haven't posted much on YouTube in the last few months. One, the holiday season is always really busy, and for me this year it was especially busy and difficult. But I got into a really bad habit of comparing what I was doing with other people and what they were doing. And, you know, I make mistakes. My stuff isn't always perfect. And it's really easy to compare something like our artwork But the danger in doing that in art journaling should be a really personal and fun experience. And, I don't have as many followers as a lot of people, and my work isn't always as good, but I'm trying to really start this year off with a different attitude and just get back to the joy of sharing with you all, because I really love art journaling. I love mixed media, and creating art is my personal outlet. So I am just promising to myself and to you guys, even though there aren't a lot of you, I do appreciate each one of you who comes to my channel and checks out my videos and follows me on social media. I'm really hoping to get a lot more content out this year, and really do it for the real reason that I started with to begin with. It's not about followers and how many likes and comments. It's about sharing something that I really love and am passionate about. So thank you for hanging out with me for this tutorial. Be sure to check back often. Give me a like if you can, and if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all the new content. Until next time.